All right, welcome back to another Corona Geek, here where we talk all about mobile app development using Corona SDK. I'm your host, Charles McKeever, and today we're going to talk about localization. We're going to look at some code to help you do that. We're also going to talk about CoronaViewer and how you can develop your application on the device and do that with the fewest amount of keystrokes possible, especially since you're going to be on the device itself. And if we get time, we'll sprinkle on some sample code at the end just to kind of follow through on the promise that we've been having in the past couple of shows to do that, and we keep running out of time. We got so much stuff, great stuff to talk about. It just never gets there. So hopefully we'll get to that. So how are you guys doing? Welcome back from the 4th of July weekend for all of those you in the States and everybody else. Hey, welcome back from the weekend.
Everybody still have their fingers?
Everybody still have their fingers. No firework accidents. Awesome. That's great.
We had a hurricane, so.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. The East Coast had a hurricane. Wow,
Right.
I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you have power.
Glad you have one.
Yeah, I'm always tempted to invest in Home Depot and Lowe's when I hear about hurricanes in the East Coast.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's get into these announcements and get into the topics for today because we got a lot going on. So, Corona Geek number 96 was last week's show. We talked about creating particle effects in Photoshop using Quick's Kaboom plugin. Greg gave us a demo of how that works, and if you haven't seen that, go watch 96. Check it out. It's pretty cool. You can create all your particle effects, edit them, use them all within Quick using the Kaboom plugin. And right now, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's a sale going on for it, and it's almost half off of what it usually is. So get that while it lasts because it's a great plugin. We also did a little bit of Ask Ed, which is not Ask It, but Ask Ed, where Ed went through some of his tutorials and things over at romangamer.com, and he's been answering questions on the forums and on what's that other place?
Oh yeah, sure.
Stack Overflow.
Stack Overflow, right?
Yeah, and he's been answering all these questions and putting them up on his website as tutorials, or I call them tutorials. So
Article-y thingies.
Article-y posts, yeah. So go check that out, romangamer.com, and Ed's also going to take us through the localization stuff today when we get to that as well. Show number 100 is coming up. I don't know if you guys realize this, but this is number 97. We are 3 away from the coveted 100. We are going to do a special show. It's going to be offset by 1. So I guess if, according to arrays, if you're a 0-based array or a 1-based array, we're going to do it offset 1. To be on show 101, we're actually going to have a Corona team panel. We'll try to get Walter and David and Albert and Brent and Rob and whoever else we can drag into the panel to talk about what's going on with Corona and things like that. And what we're going to do is, starting probably next week, we'll send out a form, put links on social media and in the forums, but a link to a form where you can ask questions, and then on the show, the panel will answer those questions. So, thanks to I think it was Krim who suggested that, so thanks for that suggestion. And also Ray over at stinkykitties.com is cooking up a surprise. He sent me an email of some kind of crazy thing that he's creating over there, special for show 100, so I can't wait to see that here in the studio. Also, Gremlin Interactive is having a plugin sale. If you are interested in Amazon Ads, Chartboost, Keep, or PayPal, then you need to go over to gremlininteractive.com. We will put a link in the show notes, but they're having a sale on all of their plugins, and I think Jen, are they half off?
Yeah, something like that. And there's no app limit anymore. So we listened to the users, and we made changes, and we're getting some sales now, so that's really nice.
Very cool. Do you think that the app limit was a barrier? You think?
Yeah, I think so, because a lot of people who are wanting to invest in plugins, they have a big portfolio. They want to just be able to, just like we've always used plugins, you just slam it in whatever apps you want and you go.
That kind of makes sense. Yeah, yeah. The heavy users, the people who would, like as you say, would want to invest in that. They know that they need it, but they don't want to necessarily have to figure out the math to buy multiples of it. That makes sense. Yeah, because if you're kind of new to it, you might not know yet what you need.
So no more Twitter smackdowns with Jen Looper. Okay, guys.
That's funny. That's good. So yeah, so go check that out. Amazon Ads, Chartboost, Keep, and PayPal. At the price that they are right now, they're half off. You could just go over there and just buy up the whole collection. It's like a cereal box, right? Collect all 4. Go ahead and get those. It's well worth it. Also, Chunky Apps has put out a new app called First Pitch. Now, I don't remember if you remember these guys. He did City Birds, and we talked about him last week. He had an update to City Birds. Great app on its own. And then he put up this game called First Pitch, and we'll put a link in the show notes. But I think the most notable things about it are that it's a very simple concept. It's basically a pitcher. There's a pitcher and a catcher on the screen. You're throwing the ball. And the graphics are very clean, very well done as usual. And there's also a good use of interstitial ads. You just have to go and see it. I think it's a free app. We'll put a link in the show notes, but go check it out and let us know what you think about it. All right, community news. Anybody on the panel got anything they want to share? Anybody got any? Yeah?
Learning Mobile Application and Game Development e-textbook is now finalized. The last chapter has been added. The PDF is uploaded. If you've already purchased it, you can download it, and I will be sending out a link hopefully later this week once I've got the EPUB and Mobi versions ready, that you'll be able to get those. But yeah, for right now, just go to the books page on my website, and you can get the book update if you've already purchased it. And if you purchase by midnight tonight, you can get the EPUB or the Mobi for free as well.
Okay, excellent.
We'll go ahead and extend that for those who have been a supporter of the early adoption methodology. And there is an update coming for the beginning mobile application and mobile application development books. I've gone through and changed from storyboard to composer, as well as I've added a new chapter on Graphics 2.0, which actually goes through and explains what all the different composites do and all the different effects do, including Phoenix and Reflect, inside joke there. It explains what all of the different effects do and what the impact of doing all those different composites are, and hopefully it will be a good resource for both of them. I'm hoping by the end of the week or early next week I'll have those available for the new version.
Yeah, we'll definitely go check that out. burtonsmediagroup.com. You know, if you haven't been listening to the show before, maybe this is your first time tuning in, Brian puts out these books in advance. Usually you can order them ahead of time. You get the book right then. When he updates it, you get the updated copy of the book. So, and as he updates it, I mean, I haven't seen yet where you've cut somebody off. As he updates the book, you get updated versions of the book. So if something changes and he updates it, then you get the most recent copy. You can't get that in traditional books, and even the publishers of most big publisher houses, you know, you buy a version of the book and that's it. If you want the next version of the book, you have to pay again, and it's phenomenal. So go check that out for sure, definitely. All right. Well, I'll try to, Brian. I'll try to get the show out as quickly today as possible. Then make sure everybody has a chance to, you know, just act by midnight. And we'll also, you know, if everybody on the panel would, Brian's tweeted that. So if you guys would help us out and retweet, that would be awesome as well. All right. Anybody else got anything? Sorry, I was going to jump around.
Localization released a new application, so not a dress up, but a puzzle with princesses.
Which one? Where?
Laura Tallardy's new app.
Oh, okay. And we'll put a link in the show notes. You guys put a link in the chat so I can get that.
He posted it on Facebook.
Okay, awesome.
I'll get it for you.
Great. And then okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say this month is my daughter's birthday, so I actually made Maddie Bear's birthday for iPad free until the 22nd. So,
very cool. So go to MaddieBearBooks.com. Is that where?
Yeah, all the links are there.
Should we sing Happy Birthday?
Not till the 22nd.
Well, that would be cool. Let me write that down. 22nd. 22nd. You're gonna do like a big dancing bear or something for her birthday?
I don't know.
Bear? Yeah. No. Okay.
Give away.
Well, she's still small, so it might freak her out, right?
Yeah, probably.
Don't do that.
It's actually been getting quite a few downloads. I didn't really announce it too much that it's been free, but if all the downloads were paid, I could pay off my student loans. But since it's free, I get nothing.
Satisfaction.
Yep.
All right.
Here, I'll plug my latest too. If anybody wants to stretch and strengthen, go to do minute stretches.
Minute stretches, and that's on. Is it on iOS or Android?
iOS right now.
iOS. Okay. Okay. So just Google minute stretches iOS, right? And that'll be the first thing that comes up.
Maybe.
Anybody else? Kevin, you got anything? No? Looks like he's frozen.
Sorry, I was reading something. No, nothing today from me.
Okay, good. Okay. All right. Well, let's get into some of this other stuff here. Basically, if you haven't had a chance, go over to the blog, coronalabs.com/blog, and check out. There is a blog post over there on handling callback functions. That's a very good one. So basically, if you have split your project into modules and you have callback functions, give some tips and tricks on how to handle that so that you don't get lost in the mix. Also in the forums, I don't know if you guys saw, but the Million Tile Engine, say that a bunch of times, is there's a new update available on Gumroad. We'll put a link in the show notes. But if you're not familiar with that library, it's designed to allow Corona developers to build enormous tile maps in Tiled, the app Tiled, and run them at full speed on almost any device. Now, they say that you can do 1,000, 10,000, or 100,000, even 1,000,000 tiles, and the only constraint is on the map size is device memory. So it's pretty amazing. There's some there's a video that we'll put in the show notes on YouTube where they did a Corona Stein 3D. Have you seen this? Basically, it looks like Wolfenstein 3D. You know, the whole old school 3D kind of stuff, but it's for Corona. So it's kind of interesting stuff that's going on over there. So we'll put a link in the show notes for that as well. And he's got a whole channel. Teraflop 122's got a whole channel devoted to showing some of the stuff that he's doing with the Million Tile engine. All right, I think we need to get into localization now. Ed, are you?
Sorry. What was on the list next? Oh yeah.
I was scrolling through and I was like, let's just skip that. Okay, let's do localization now.
All right. Well, we can do this in a few minutes so we can get on to some of the other interesting topics.
I think localization's a hugely interesting topic.
I'm just saying I'm jonesing for some of the other topics today, too. So what is localization? Everybody here on the panel knows, but those who are listening for the first time, perhaps, localization is pretty much the practice of creating a local, usually at the file level scope, which then has a reference to a function or a variable that lives somewhere else. So a good example of this is math.squareRoot. Math square root is the square root function. It lives, it lives in the math library or module, depending on how you want to look at it. And it has a certain execution, what's the word I'm seeking here? Penalty for running it directly out of the library. However, you can get rid of that penalty by localizing it. So I'll show you an example of what localizing it looks like first, and then I'll talk about today's topic, which is automated localization.
So this isn't localization like different languages and that sort of thing. This is a performance.
Like getting your app converted to Japanese or something like that. No, this is a Lua feature, which is useful to Corona developers.
A better name might be automatic local variables.
All right, I just messed up. Sorry, guys. Let's try that again without clicking. Google Hangouts, I go to click on the window and it changes. Thank you.
Jen, are you doing a stand-up desk?
Yes, and I just stood up. So,
Yeah, because you look like yeah. I was like, hey, she's standing up.
Yeah.
All right, can you guys see that okay?
That looks good.
Am I still showing my code?
Yeah, we have two Sublime
two
windows.
So basically what I'm talking about with regards to localization is the normal way to call math square root is like this. However, alternately, I could create a local variable, let's say math square root 2, and then store math square root in it, and then call it as a function, as you normally would. So there's nothing mysterious about this. The syntax of it is relatively straightforward. Today's topic is, however, about basically the old way I used to do it and the new way I do it. So in my projects, what I tend to do is create long lists of localized functions. For example, here I've localized the random function, a whole number of the math functions, floor, a tangent 2, some variables like pi, and then some system stuff like get info, get timer, the string matching, and the list goes on and on. I mean, for a typical project, I may accumulate 40 lines of localized functions for whatever reason. And I may not use them all in any individual file, but out of habit, I've created these lists where I just localize these things in case I need them, because I don't want to be typing along and say local equals and run that code and not have defined mrand, which is math random. So I just create these lists and copy them from file to file and reuse them. And this got to be a problem because not only are the lists really long, and then I have to scroll down to find the actual functional part of my code, but I might have a list that looks like this in one file, and then another file that might be missing one element. And then I'll go to use get info in that file, and of course it won't work, and then I say, oh yeah, I forgot, it's the local info, blah, 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 type it in, and it's a lot of work. So what I decided to do was seek some way to do this in one line of code. That's the holy grail for me. Get it all basically for free. So I put a question out in the forums. Oh, I should back up. Sergey had a piece of code out on Gist, whatever, where he did something, and it looked kind of like what I was trying to do, but I couldn't quite figure out what he was doing. And when I tried to use it, it didn't work as I expected it to. And so I kind of abandoned it. But I came back to it last week, and I asked in the forums, and I got a bunch of really good answers. And what that led me to was basically being able to replace this and just think hundreds more lines in the extreme example with this. Basically a single line. Now it's not perfect, but it's very good in the sense that if I need to update this, I only have to update one file, run my code again, it'll print out a usage string, which I then copy out of the console, and I can paste in here. And I'll do this for you as an example. Okay, or I may not, if I can't find the darn thing.
So I'm seeing there that it's got local and then all the different variable names, comma separated. I'm assuming on the other end of that is something else?
Yes, so let me give you a shorter example so you can see what's going on here. So this is the same bit of code here, except it only creates 3 locals. So on the one side, we've got this file, which you can download from me. And in here, I localize all the variables that I normally do. Absolute, random, get info, get timer, etc. And then I run some magic code, which is a mashup of Sergey's code and some thoughts that I had on how to improve this. And what it does is it auto-discovers all the local variables here at the top. It creates a list. And then when this function is executed, what it does is it looks at the file where this was executed and says, what local variables are in scope? Do I have them in my list? And if I do, put what I have in my list here in the local in that file. So in short, min, max, and square root are going to have the same values that were stored over here. So as long as it's got the same, let's see, as long as it's got the same name over here, it will get assigned to the variable in this file.
And technically those could be 2 lines, right? You just
right. You could make it 2 lines. You could make it right. I could do this. There. That would still work. So what it does, is when this runs, it discovers every local above this point where it started to execute, and then it checks this list called locals and says, do I have a similarly named variable? And if I do, whatever's in my variable will get assigned to this one. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you could make custom stuff too. You could do like local awesome sauce. Right? And then I could do, if I can type.
So even though that's not necessarily a library of sorts, it's still a local
any value. Okay. Anything that you can have in a local here can get assigned automatically to a local here. And I was going to run this, but of course it's not running now because I have in fact, it looks like, lost the directory that I was working in. Give me 2 seconds, sorry. Did anybody have any questions while I'm...
No, I like this. I like the automation portion of this because
that was exactly what I wanted. I wanted something where I didn't have to keep updating my scripts in all kinds of locations. And I say it's imperfect because if I do want a new local, I have to go update this, and then I have to update the code that uses it by adding that variable here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not fully automatic, which is what I was looking for, but it is automated in the sense that define it here, declare it here, run this, and boom, it gets filled in. So it's far less code for me. Oh, I wanted to show you also. Give me 2 seconds and I'll run it for you.
Could you create a community version of that? Like it could be on Git someplace, GitHub someplace, and then people could reference it and pull it in?
People can download it and create their own customized versions for their own needs. I mean, the core of it, the magical part that does the automated fill-in, is the same for everybody. So it's really what list of things do you want to have localized for your projects?
Yeah.
Although you ask an interesting question, and I have not yet figured out how to do that, which is create a public GitHub where anybody can edit it or certain people can get permissions and I can maintain that easily. Let me show you my code here.
Yeah, I know Git and GitHub and all that stuff like that. It's only been hasn't been popular all that long. So I know for myself, I've come into this awareness of its uses and its value, and so yeah, setting up those things where you can share with other people is not necessary. We all kind of start out setting up our own thing and working with it, and then eventually, like you say, get to that point where I actually want to share this with other people, which multiplies the value.
Yeah, you've suggested this a few times on other projects, and I never did figure it out. So it's on my list of things to figure out. So I'm going to show you here is if you download this and you grab the code as is, you'll run the project, and what you'll see here is you'll see this string that prints out with all these local mabs mrand. And this is basically, you can just copy this into your project, and it will, you'll get all the locals that are in the file. And so what I'm saying is, if I add that awesome sauce as the first variable, rerun this, if I can find the window. You should see that now Awesome Sauce, which I put at the top of the list, is now first listed. So I can take this, I can manage it.
You're just going to copy and paste it out then?
Right. I just take that, and this is a little bit slow because I'm switching screens here. I apologize.
So basically what you've got there, for anybody who's listening to this, then, is you've got a library file that has all of these local variables defined, and then when you're running this, you're basically spitting out the line of code that you're going to include into your local project.
Exactly. And so I just copied it and pasted it, and now when I run my project, Awesome Sauce will show up here, and I can use it, the localized version, the automated localized version in my code.
That's
in another file.
You kind of, I know this isn't your intention, but you kind of break up an interesting point there, that all of those variable names are comma separated on one line, and of course in this case, you've got a very good use case that you want to condense the size of the number of lines in your file so that you can get to the core code. I know that myself, I've always avoided those types of things, putting comma separating, putting everything, doing multiple variable declarations on one line. But it just saves so much space, especially when you know that you've already got all your variables defined and you know what they are. You just don't need to take up all those extra lines. So what do you guys feel? How do you feel about that? I mean, all those little tips and tricks that help you kind of condense your code. Do you like those or not like those, or do you think it's like something like this where when it has a specific use case, it makes sense?
Code density is good. I especially hate when people make separate blank lines in the code, like consequently, like blank line, blank line. It's horrible to see.
Doesn't like my code. I have blanks between functional areas.
When I see more code, it's easier to understand it.
So you like the code condensed together then? So, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But you like run-on sentences, where I like sentences and paragraphs.
I think it's a personal preference. I like to space it out by function.
Yeah.
I give you a bad time, but Sergey's an excellent coder. So.
Yeah. Oh, well, it is come down to personal preference. Chris, you're absolutely right, and
it's just easier to read for me.
Yeah. I tend to what I'll tend to do is when I'm trying to understand something, especially something I haven't written, I will go in and put extra spaces. And I'll even create visual separators, like lines and dashes or whatever, and that way I can just kind of chunk the code up into pieces. And then after I
have a lot of spacing in between things I'm working on. Like if I'm working on one specific area, I'll have it kind of spaced out so I can kind of see everything that's going on, and then when I'm done, I kind of condense it all down since I'm not going to be really playing with it again. Yeah,
exactly. Once I understand all the blocks and how everything works, and I'm like, oh, okay, then I get rid of as much extra space as possible, just because I'm like, okay, well now I know what's going on. So
right.
Totally.
I understand where Sergey's coming from though, because you only got so many lines you can see on the page at one time.
Yeah.
And unless you're gonna be like 10 font or 8 font, you're not gonna be able to get all those lines on the screen.
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I've come to the point where I kind of like to, I like to have the font as big as possible. It's almost like they're animals.
I'm getting old now, so I got the glasses and the big font.
Right. It's easier to understand. With like kids seem to grok larger font than smaller font. I don't know why. They just have an easier time processing it because maybe they're trying to take all this information in all at one time, and if it's really big font, then they just kind of focus on those words. So I've adopted that for code. I just make the code as big as I can get to get it, get things on the screen, and I'm like, okay, now I get it,
Another neat thing on my Sublime, I raise the padding around each line. So even though I don't use like a space in between each line, there's a little bit extra padding, which makes it easy to read.
I didn't think about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, some cool tweaks on Sublime.
Well, if you go back to, and I don't want to deviate too much from the conversation here, but if you go back to the original typesetting, original whatever, I don't even know what the right word is for it, but the flow of words, right? The way that we have different fonts for different purposes, like reading. Some fonts lend themselves to reading large text because the letters flow in from one into the other, right? And so it makes complete sense if you're spending all this time looking at tons of code for hours on end. Just make it as easy as possible on yourself. It doesn't. I mean, that's just like the black and you do. Who? Okay. How many people like a black background, and how many people like a white background?
Black.
All mood for me.
What's that?
Just depends what kind of mood I'm in.
The mood. Okay. So you're black.
I find black less stressful on the eyes.
I used to do white, and then I kind of got to the tired eyes, and then flipped it to black, and then for a while there, that was a total paradigm shift. I was like, I don't know if I can get used to this, and now I'm like, I don't think I could go back to doing white because there's less noise and the color coding of the syntax highlighting of the editors and stuff pops so much better. And
and if for whatever reason you use a laptop mobily, I think black uses less energy, right?
Yeah.
Fewer lit pixels.
Black doesn't
good point.
Less energy.
It doesn't?
No, it doesn't, because lamps in your display are always at the same level. It's just that pixels are collapsing and moving so that white light is not passing them through.
Okay.
It's no matter what light.
Technology, right? How they've implemented their.
Who's that? Amazon? You talking about Amazon's their ink? No?
Oh, well, yeah, no. Besides ink, the e-ink, which is, But there's, 3 major technologies for LED screens, right? That's not right. For
LCD?
LCD screens, that's still not right.
No?
We have here LCD in film technology. We have MVA matrices and we have IPS matrices. If it's what you mean.
Those are for mobile devices, though. I'm talking about laptops.
No, it's for everything. And Samsung's AMOLED, which is more brighter. It's used.
I guess I shouldn't open my mouth unless I can remember.
But they put it on one laptop.
That's awesome. No, okay, yeah. Well, I don't. Yeah, I just like to make the code as easy as possible to read. So it's interesting that you say that, Ed, that you're putting all your stuff on one line. Once you know what your variables are, just put it all on one line.
I generally don't like to code that, but it was easy to generate the usage statement, the one that gets printed out.
Yeah.
You can just copy and paste it, and it's functionally, works. I don't actually like it for a couple of reasons, though. It's totally unprintable for those of us who still print our code occasionally. Some of it gets cut off or wrapped around.
You still print your code?
Yeah, I print my code out occasionally. I like to do that. I know I'm old school.
I take pictures of it on my iPhone.
I also worry about the maximum length of a line as far as when I actually go to build it. I don't know what that max length is, or if there is one. But in previous lives, let's put it that way, I've run into situations where you would make an extremely long line of code. We're talking maybe 20 years ago, and then you try to compile it, and it couldn't compile because the compiler couldn't handle the length of the line. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Back when a file name could only have so many characters. I got you.
Back when dinosaurs used to
roam the earth, right?
Yeah,
I have a question.
But right now it's not an issue.
I have a question. Is there a difference between when you localize your variables? Is there any difference between when it's inside of a function or a method as opposed to being initialized outside in the larger scope?
Yes, there's a difference. If when you if you put a local variable outside a function and reference it inside a function, a so-called up-value table is created inside the function. So it's all the values outside the function are put in the special value and they're indexed there. So it's 2 steps when it's in a function. So it looks in function's up-value table and then in upper value.
So is there any benefit to having it just specifically in a function as opposed to outside of the function?
For best performance, you should localize inside the function.
Okay.
Yeah, basically localize it as close to the point that you're going to use it as possible. But then it's a question. I mean,
yeah, I'm just curious about what the ramifications are.
So Ed, in your example, those are all things that you're gonna define at the top of your file anyway, right?
Right. I generally don't put locals. I don't do localization within functions unless I'm going to do a large number of iterations within that function. So,
okay.
I mean,
and then also, too, my other question is there a
Sorry?
memory hit or anything if you initialize the local variables even if you're not going to use them? Is that, I mean, I'm sure it's negligible, but is there some?
There is a memory cost to any of these localization implementations.
Okay.
So the more you localize, the more your cost. Sergey, do you know? I don't know. This is Lua. I don't know all of the backbone parts of Lua.
There's a limit in Lua for up values. You can only have 60 of them. It's a built-in number in Lua, so if you have more than 60 values, it won't compile, and it will give you an error about it.
Hmm. So in fact, this usage could run into an up value issue.
Well, if you have only if you're referencing 60 of them inside your function.
Okay.
If you have a 60 outside of your function and you don't use them, it's fine.
Yeah. Of course, now you're going to define up value for the non-Luaites out there, right? I've never read a really good definition of what an up value is. I understand it, sort of, but I can't describe it well. It's like
up value is anything outside the function.
Not anything outside the function.
Yes, anything.
So we're talking about, is the up value as variables inside the function or outside the function?
Who's on first?
Well, I got.
For me, this auto-localization is more about usability because, yes, when you have different global variables defined, you should not use global variables, and you should use local variables. It's better coding, it's better style. So what I mainly use them for is to define my variables for screen widths, like screen left side, right side, top, bottom, and yeah, I finished up my pro tip, and once Ed is done with his part, I can show it my way.
Okay. I think I've gone way over 5 minutes, and don't forget we still got to talk about some other topics.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Sergey, you want to show yours real quick?
Yeah, let me show. Let me start the screen share. You now should see my web page for the website.
Awesome.
So here I talk about the background, and here is my main function. So in my app Lua, I have this table which holds all the variables that I'm going to localize inside my Lua files for Corona. It's like this is my variables for screen sizes and coordinates. This is for mass values, table insert, and other stuff. So, and this is the main function that does this trick. It's almost the same as Ed uses, but since then I have modified it a little. There was print. I replaced it with error, so if there's no up value, so it will tell me and will not let me to run my Corona application. And yeah, I use it like this. At the top of any file that I use, I will write something like this. A bunch of local variables I want to localize. I'm requiring my main app library, which does all the stuff, and I'm calling setlocals. Setlocals with help of this function in this loop, in this repeat until not k, can see the names of all these variables, and then it checks this name, which is k, and if the name is such and it has no value, it looks it inside the locals table, and if there is a value, it sets such value with that local variable. And number 2 here is how to call it, maybe a scope, because number 1 means this function. Number 2 means outside of this function. Outside of this function would be here. So this is 2, and this is 1. And anything above it would be 3 and 4 and 5 and so on. And we're interested only in 2. So that's why we use this number. And this number is the same as in this error function. If you make it 1 instead of 2, error would point you to this specific line right here. But you want this line to be here, and it will point you here.
Now, I know that.
It's gone.
What's that?
Serge's screen share went blank.
Uh-oh. Well, I still see it on this side.
Okay.
So it's okay. So it's your problem.
Yeah, Kevin. Yeah, Kevin.
Sorry.
It's all right.
So I have it on my website. Go and check it.
You know, I see that I got a question for you. I see that in yours you've got the local and the variables are defined, and then you require and assign it to a variable, and then you set locals. What in Ed's version, he's got locals. He's got local variables, and then when he requires the library or whatever, but he doesn't have to do any set locals or anything like that. What's the difference between doing one and doing the other?
He does the host. Wait, I think I have it opened.
Ed, are you just doing that in your library file, or I mean, why are those two different?
Actually, they're very similar. We use the core. Yeah, the run routine right there is quite.
Yeah, the run function right here is the same that I've written several months ago, and it wasn't working for me. And yeah, Ed tried it, and it was working. I was so surprised, and I was so glad that Ed actually brought it, so I actually can use it. It was very tedious to manage all these local values. What Ed is using is that he is using not a table for local variables, but he is just defining them as local in the module. And with this function...
No.
Who's yelling?
What is this?
No, presume you...
Okay. And with this function, he checks all the variables here and puts them inside the locals table. So it's maybe an extra step, but it's more readable, maybe. So it's
what it does is go back to your example.
Wait a minute. Here.
Yeah. Okay. So you see, he's got scroll all the way to the top. He's got locals. So locals is the table that contains all the names and then what's in the name. So under bar W is display content with. So what I've done is instead created a bunch of locals at the top and then auto-populated this locals thing. So it's just a convention. It was a little easier for me to type out another line instead of modifying the table like he does.
Okay.
Very little difference.
Okay. So it's a matter of taste.
Yeah.
So same endpoint, just different ways to get there.
Same result, exactly. Just slightly different approach to some of the mechanics of it.
Well, very cool. Well, we'll definitely put a link in that to the show notes, Sergey, and send people over to your website so that they can take a look at that. You've written everything up, as he has been for the past couple of weeks. Been writing up things, putting it on the website. Ed and I think Ed and Sergey are the dueling banjos. They're both putting out great content every week, and I think that's a benefit to the community. So thanks, guys. I appreciate that.
Which of us is playing which character? Which is what I want to know.
No, sharing is very important in programming. While you share, you exploring stuff as well, because I've written several pro tips that I didn't know myself. Like when I want to share something, I go back to this code that I have and I resync it and I improve it for myself as well. So it helps me too. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, imagine how much developing would suck if we were just doing it all in isolation. If there were no Google and there were no GitHubs of the world and there wasn't any way to collaborate on things, it would really stink. So, all right. Well, hey, we've got a few minutes left here. Let's do the CoronaViewer tips. You guys want to do that real quick?
Yeah, please.
So let me share my screen. So basically, if you guys haven't been following along, especially the people who are listening at home, there is now in beta, if you are a subscriber, I believe you can get it in the daily builds, there's a CoronaViewer. I'm trying to share my screen here. Share my screen. Oh, there it is. It's always behind. You can get CoronaViewer, and you can basically do application development and then have the results show up on your device. So let me just show you what that looks like here. That'll be, actually will be easier. Hold on. Share the screen. Not that screen. The screen here. Okay, can you guys see that?
Right.
All right, so what I've got here is I've got CoronaViewer over here on the simulator, and I've got the project open here in my Finder, and it's probably hard to see on the video, but down here this CoronaViewer is actually in my Dropbox folder. There's an apps folder, and then there's a CoronaViewer folder, and so all that automatically gets created for you. All you have to do is build the CoronaViewer, and then when you run it on your device, you load it up on your device like you normally would. When you run it, it will ask you for access to your Dropbox, which at that point you allow it, and what it'll do is it'll create this special folder in the apps folder, and if the apps folder doesn't exist, it'll automatically create that as well. But it'll create this folder, and then whatever project files you put into that special Dropbox folder will start appearing on your device. So for example, let me show my, if I can show it here. I've got the project actually running on my iPhone. So I've got here on my desktop, I've got Reflector running. So we're looking at my iPhone here on through Reflector, and it's actually running the project that's here in Dropbox. So if I were to go into the project, which I actually have it open here in Sublime, and I were to make a value change, say like the crate rotation, let's just make it like 25 or something, and hit save, our simulator refreshes, and our CoronaViewer that's running on the device actually refreshes as well, because again, everything's being synchronized through Dropbox. So it takes a little bit of a nanosecond or so for network latency and whatnot for the file to go up to Dropbox and then be pulled down to the local device, but it's pretty close to instantaneous depending on your network connectivity. So that's pretty cool in and of itself. It's on iOS currently at the moment in beta, and Android is coming. So that's being worked on, and we're still kind of internally testing it before we put it out for public beta. But one of the interesting things was that Karim brought up in the forums that you could use an editor on your local device to edit your Dropbox files, and then you essentially could do development directly on the device and be able to see the results as you work. So the application in question was Textastic, which I actually have installed here. And if you go in, you can look and you can see all of your project files. So this is everything that's in that Dropbox, that CoronaViewer Dropbox folder. And when you open up your file, it has syntax highlighting and things like that. So it actually supports Lua syntax highlighting and whatnot. So if we wanted to, this same file that's open over here in my Sublime, I can go over here on my device and put my cursor there, and I can make a change. We'll change the rotation to 15, and then when I push that, it's going to push it back up to Dropbox, and then my simulator on my desktop is automatically going to refresh. So if I wanted to, I could go back over here to my project on the device, and it refreshes there as well, which is pretty cool.
So is CoronaViewer, is it actually recompiling the app, or is it running as a simulator on the device?
It's basically like running a simulator on the device. It's the application running on the device itself, just like it does when it runs in the simulator. But you're actually on the device, so you get device performance as opposed to the desktop performance.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So you still have to, once you're done, you still have to, once you want to package it up and send it to an app store, you still have to go back to your desktop, do the build process and all of that, and then submit it to the stores. But as far as development is concerned, you can do development on your device. And this is, of course, I'm doing it on the iPhone just to kind of prove the concept that it's workable here on a small form factor, but you could use an iPad or whatnot to do your development.
Cool. You can put the iPad on a stand and use a Bluetooth keyboard or USB keyboard and connect it to your iPad and type it. It would be pretty comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we were talking about that before the show started. About it'd be great if you could pair a Bluetooth mouse with an iPad. So once this thing gets up and running on Android, if you can do that on the Android side of things, yeah, you really could have a full-fledged development environment.
Hey, Charles.
Yeah.
You've already discussed it, but is there a directory structure requirement for this?
Well, yes and no.
Does it have to be flat, or can you have folders?
No, you can have folders. We have run into, there is a Dropbox bug that has to do with the capitalization of folders, and in some instances, depending on the nestedness of the structure, it might run into problems if there's a capitalized folder name. But that's a Dropbox issue, not a Corona issue. So what we're saying in those instances is that if at all possible, just use lowercase folder names for your project. I think most people probably do anyway. So just for this very example, this is pulled from physics. This is the Hello Physics example. It's a flat project structure and it only has a few files in it. But I threw one of my projects into it that had multiple folders, multiple files, a lot more complicated assets, and it runs just fine. But that said, it is still beta, so if you run into an issue, it's something that you definitely want to tell us about, and we'll try to hammer out any issues. Okay, so that's Textastic, and we'll put a link in the show note. But here's the other thing. So you're on your device, and you are obviously going to be like all thumbs, right, typing things out. So wouldn't it be great if you could pair that with something like Text Expander? Now there's Text Expander on. See if I can have it here. There's Text Expander on the desktop. So let me open Text Expander, and you have things where you can do. Let's just say here, for example, like a hide status bar. Right, so I want to do display.set status bar and display hidden, blah, blah, blah. Well, I can create a snippet, and then I can assign it a shortcut, and then anytime that I type that shortcut, so if we went up here, we could say hide status. Let's see if hopefully it's going to do it here on my desktop. Hide status. Oh, it's not doing it on my desktop. Why not? Then it would automatically hide bar. You gotta remember what your own shortcuts are. So if you do it, if you type whatever that text is, it's gonna automatically inject that text into your file, right? So you could really speed things up by creating yourself a whole bunch of shortcodes where you could type and print out common things. So that comes in pretty handy because now you can do that over here on your device. So if I went back to, let's say, for example, that same hide bar, if I went back to Textastic and type it here, hide bar, boom. So it's automatically going to expand that, and then I get the speed, the productivity bump by not having to type out all that code in long form. So one of the great things is, again, using the miracle of Dropbox, is that you can come in here and you can create a new snippet, and you can say sample snippet, and let's just copy that just for paste it there. Just the label is whatever you want the label to be, just to remind yourself. Doesn't have to be anything in particular. And then let's just say the abbreviation is snip. Okay, so now I've created a sample snippet with the content of sample snippet that has an abbreviation of snip. So whenever I come over here to my file and I type, I'm going to get whatever that text was. So if I jump back over to my device and wait, you'll see that through Dropbox it automatically moves snip over to my text expander on the device. So I didn't have to do anything. It's automatically synced. So if you have like a bunch of, if you're kind of like Ed, you got a library full of stuff, and you want to you don't want to type it all in on the device, you could just put it all into the desktop version and then have it automatically pulled over to the device. Now, the one caveat to that I've experienced, and I haven't found a workaround for yet, is that let's say that I'm back over here in Textastic now, and let's just get rid of that. And I say, okay, I've got this snippet. It's on my Textastic on my device, and I want to use it. Well, it doesn't work. Well, why is that? Well, you have to, when you get your file open, you click on this, you tap on the gear in the right-hand corner, lower right-hand corner there. I don't know if you guys see that in the lower right-hand corner. You tap on that. It takes you to your file settings. And then what you do is you just go down here. There's a section for Text Expander. It has to be on, of course. But you just hit Update Snippets. And what that'll do is it'll cycle through. It'll go back over to Text Expander. It'll load up all the snippets that are there, and then it's updated. So now if I go back to Textastic and if I type in snip, now I get my sample snippet. So there is one extra action there, and I don't know if that's, like I said, I don't know if that's a setting someplace that I just haven't figured out how to flip it yet, or if maybe that's just an iOS kind of thing to keep code execution and keeping things separate and all that. But it works pretty well, and again, you can still do your development on the device. So if you're just to do hide bar, and there's my display. So now what I'm going to do is, since I've updated it on the device, I'm going to get rid of my keyboard. In the upper right-hand corner there, I will push this file up, and when I push my file up, you see in the simulator reloaded on my desktop, and Sublime here asked me if I wanted to reload because it recognized that the file has changed. So if I say yes, now I can see that what I added over here on the device gets added over here on my desktop file as well. So that's it. Some pretty cool stuff. You can have
several people working on the same files, and will be updated constantly.
Yeah, I mean, you could use it as a repo type solution if you want to do that. I've done that before with people in different environments. So you just have to kind of keep it.
Work with a client remotely here, honestly, right?
It's pretty cool. It's some pretty cool stuff. Oh, and so okay. Does anybody have any questions about that? Because I do. I want to show you one related thing before we.
Charles, does it want to work on Android?
What's that?
Does it work on Android?
It's being developed for Android right now. Like I said, we got to do some internal testing before we release it for public beta. But it's pretty close. And so eventually, with the idea of having you could basically have all your devices kind of propped up in front of you. You're working on your desktop doing your stuff, and then as you make changes, boom, it not only shows up in the simulator, but it shows up across all the devices that are hooked up. So, okay, so the last thing that I want to leave you with, and I don't know who just said that, but working remotely with a client. I don't know if you guys have been to Envision app. This is something that I learned about over the weekend. I heard about it on This Week in Startups. And Envision app, come on. Envision app is basically a prototyping tool for web and mobile applications. So you kind of mock up your stuff in Photoshop, you upload it to Envision, then within Envision, let me log in here real quick. In Envision, you're able to hotspot different areas within your mockup and turn them into sort of these functional prototypes. Which my connection here is kind of slow. I'm having some. Come on, there we go. Okay, so I've got this sample, very simple sample project, something I was playing with. Essentially, I uploaded 4 screens. And then each one of those screens, I was able to go in and say, okay, I want to add a hotspot here, or you could, wherever, right? So you could have, like, if let's say you had a button over here in the upper right-hand corner, you could make a hotspot, and then when you do that, you could say, I want it to go to one of these screens that I've created. So I could say, when I tap up there, I want to go to the 1 screen, U1, and I can make it an instant, I can make it a push, so you can simulate different transitional effects and things like that. So let's just do a push right just for funsies. And so I just added a hotspot, I told it what I wanted to do, and then over here on this tab, I actually already had the project open, which they'll give you, when you go to share, they will give you a URL option. You can email it to somebody. You can even SMS it to somebody. So they don't even have to like go and dig it up someplace. They just tap on the link and they're there. So all this is pretty cool. So I've got it open here on this tab. So when I refresh this project, it takes just a second to kind of pull up your assets and stuff. And so now, right there in that invisible button that I created there, I've got a hotspot, and it'll do that, the push left, push right type transition, or you can just do your like instant kind of type transition. So you start the app, you play the game, you win or you lose, and that's something that you can share with your clients. And so then the client can come in here and go to comment mode. And comment mode kind of gets rid of the form factor of the device and puts you into this zone where you can say, you know what, this hotspot here, needs a graphic, right? So then the client can comment on these, and you can as well. So like, for example, if this were a previous comment, I could come in here and I could comment on somebody else's comment. So you can have that whole threaded discussion that's so valuable. And you can also see all the different screens, and you can see how many comments are on each screen. You can get it in a different view if you prefer it like that. It's pretty cool. So I've been playing with it for a couple of days over the weekend, and I like it.
It's cool.
Yeah. So hopefully that'll be helpful. All right. Anybody got any questions or anything? I know we went through that pretty quickly.
Nope.
No? Okay. Let me pull the Hangout back over here. All right. Well, guys, I appreciate it. I think that was a good show. I liked the automated. What are we calling that again? Automated localization or automated variable?
I'd call
creation?
it automated versus automatic, which is implying something a little more powerful.
Yeah. Programmatic. There's the word we're looking for. Programmatic variable.
Yeah, that rolls right off the tongue.
just Google for that. Programmatic.
I call it automatic local variables.
Automatic local variables. All right, well, good. Well, we're going to link to. I'm going to link to Ed's. Where Ed, was that going to be on GitHub? Is that going to be on RomanGamer.com? Where is it going to be?
If you link the article's got links to the code.
Okay, good. And then we'll also link up Sergey's version as well. That way, people can compare notes and see how those things are done.
We're actually very similar.
Yeah, we didn't get to the sample code again, but we'll just move it over to next week and hopefully get to it. Maybe we'll just start out because it's really only like 3 samples, and just with the idea of trying to get you to go look at the sample code. There's so much value in the sample code. It comes with Corona. I'm just trying to tease it out and get people to go take a look. So maybe we'll just leave that at the end. Every time we'll just mention, go look at the sample code. Go look at the sample code. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us, and we will be back here next Monday at 12 p.m. Pacific for another discussion on using Corona SDK to build mobile applications. Until next week, have a great week, and happy coding.
Cheers.